She was not chosen randomly. She was studied. For weeks, he observed how she responded to small kindnesses, how she reacted to criticism, whether she asked for help easily or struggled alone in silence. By the time he approached her, he already knew the angle. He already knew the vulnerability. She believed they met by chance. He had been waiting for her to walk into range. Most people believe they would recognize manipulation. They believe they would feel the calculation beneath the warmth. They believe they would see the strategy behind the attention. They don't. Because a skilled manipulator does not begin with manipulation. They begin with selection. And the selection process is entirely invisible to the person being selected. This video is not about what manipulators do after they have their target. This is about the moment before the approach, the signals you may be sending right now that are visible to exactly the wrong people. Before we go in, drop your answer in the comments right now. Do you consider yourself a highly empathic person? Yes or no? Your answer to that question is more relevant to this video than you might be comfortable with. Keep it in mind. Robert Greene spent years studying power, seduction, and the darker mechanics of human behavior. One of his most unsettling observations, buried in the laws of human nature, was this: the most dangerous people you will ever encounter are not the ones who attack, they are the ones who select. Predatory manipulation in relationships, in professional environments, in social dynamics is not improvised, it is systematic. The manipulator is not reacting to opportunity, they are executing a process that begins long before you are aware you are being observed. What researchers consistently find is this: effective manipulation starts with a scan, a reading of the room, a quiet assessment of who is workable. Here are the signals they are looking for, and the question you need to sit with is whether you are currently broadcasting any of them. Signal 1. High empathy, invisible limits. Empathy is one of the most valuable human qualities. It is also, according to Greene, one of the most systematically exploited. The person who feels deeply, who cannot witness suffering without responding to it, who absorbs another person's pain as if it belongs to them, is a person whose emotional resources are accessible to whoever knows the entry point. Manipulators identify this signal through low-stakes tests. Small manufactured difficulties, minor expressions of pain, subtle implications that life has been unusually hard. They watch the response. Does the person lean in? Do they offer comfort before it is asked for? Do they make the other person's discomfort their own problem? Because here is what Greene understood and what most people never consciously register. A person who absorbs discomfort that is not theirs will absorb responsibility that is not theirs. The empathy is not the problem. The absence of a limit around the empathy, that is the open door. And once a manipulator finds that door, they do not kick it in. They simply stand in front of it and wait for you to let them through. Ask yourself right now, is there someone in your life whose pain you feel more responsible for than your own? Signal 2. Validation that can be controlled. Everyone needs acknowledgement. That is not weakness, that is human. But there is a threshold, and beyond that threshold, the need for external validation becomes a lever, something that can be controlled by whoever holds the supply. Greene wrote about this dynamic extensively in The Art of Seduction. He called it the creation of need. You do not seduce someone by giving them everything. You seduce them by giving them enough to become dependent and then managing the supply. Manipulators look for people whose sense of self shifts with the quality of feedback they receive, people who brighten visibly when praised, people who contract when ignored. Once that signal is identified, they establish themselves as the primary source. They give generously at first, warmth, attention, the feeling of being completely understood by someone who has known you for 3 weeks. And then, once your sense of worth has quietly calibrated itself to their supply, they begin to manage it, withhold, restore, withhold again. The cycle keeps you in a permanent state of trying to earn back what was once freely given. The tell, the person who makes you feel most seen, most quickly, deserves the most patience. Real intimacy is slow. Real understanding takes time. Instant, profound connection is a performance until proven otherwise. Which relationship in your life currently holds the most power over how you feel about yourself? Signal 3. Structural isolation. New to a city, recently ended a long relationship, distanced from family, estranged from a close friend group. The person who is structurally alone is a person without the social scaffolding that would otherwise provide perspective. Manipulators do not create isolation from scratch. They find it. They select people who are already inside it. And then, quietly, gradually, they deepen it by positioning themselves as the only relationship that truly matters, by casting doubt on your other connections, by making you feel that no one else quite understands you the way they do. Greene identified this in historical figures across centuries: the advisor who isolates the ruler, the partner who separates their target from every prior loyalty. The dynamic is ancient. The execution is always personal. When you have people who knew you before, who will tell you when something seems wrong, manipulation is difficult to sustain. Someone always notices. Someone always raises the question. The isolated target has no one raising the question. Think about the period in your life when you were most alone. Who found you during that period, and what did they want from you? Signal 4. Conflict avoidance. The person who cannot tolerate conflict will absorb almost anything rather than create friction. They will agree when they disagree, stay silent when they should speak, explain away their own discomfort because naming it out loud feels like starting a war. This signal appears early. The conflict-avoidant person apologizes often and quickly. They over-explain their own decisions. They take personal responsibility for the emotional temperature of every room they enter, even when the temperature was raised by someone else entirely. To a manipulator, this is an open field. It means violations will be absorbed without confrontation. It means the relationship can be pushed farther, faster, with less resistance than it would encounter from someone willing to hold their position when something is wrong. Greene's observation cuts here. Power always moves toward the person willing to hold their position. The person who retreats from friction hands their position to whoever is willing to stand in it. The conflict-avoidant person does not just avoid discomfort. They create an environment where the other person bears no cost for causing it. Signal 5. A history that set the threshold. Not because people with difficult pasts are weak, the opposite. People who have survived real relational chaos are often extraordinarily resilient. But they have been calibrated by that chaos in ways that can be read and exploited. If you grew up with inconsistency, if love was warm one moment and withdrawn the next, you were trained, without knowing it, to tolerate enormous fluctuation in how people treat you. You were trained to stay when most people would leave, to interpret the good moments as the truth of the relationship, and explain away the difficult ones as temporary exceptions. Greene called this the prepared ground, the person whose history has already done the conditioning work that the manipulator would otherwise have to do themselves. A manipulator who identifies this history knows something critical.
They know what your threshold has been set at. They know how much fluctuation you will absorb before you leave. And in most cases, they know they can operate well within that threshold and still cause significant damage.
Knowing the signals is only useful if something is done with the knowledge. First, audit your current conditions, not to shame yourself, to see clearly. Are you isolated right now? Is your sense of worth tied to one person's opinion of you? Is there a relationship where conflict feels impossible? These are not character flaws, they are conditions, and conditions can be changed. Second, slow down new intensity. The relationship that moves very fast, that feels unusually aligned with exactly what you needed at exactly this moment, deserves patience, not suspicion, patience. Masks require maintenance. Given enough time, they always slip. Third, rebuild the scaffolding. The single most effective protection against predatory behavior is other people. Not any one person, a network. People who knew you before. People who have no investment in your compliance. Isolation is not just a vulnerability, it is a choice point. The manipulator did not choose you randomly. They chose you specifically. They saw something in you that they believed they could use. And in almost every case, what they saw was not weakness. It was goodness that had not yet learned where to place its limits. That is the cruel irony at the center of this. The most compassionate people, the most empathic, the most willing to see the good in others, they're the ones who pay the highest cost when someone decides to take advantage of that. The answer is not to become cold. The answer is to become precise, to reserve your best qualities for the people who have genuinely earned them, and to make that earning a visible, non-negotiable requirement, not an optional courtesy. Write in the comments, which of the 5 signals do you currently carry? Not which you used to have, which is present in your life right now. That is the one that needs your attention first. Subscribe to Behavioral Blueprint. This is where the uncomfortable truths live.